Good evening. Welcome to Kansas City, Kansas Public Library and our program Estate Planning Basics, provided by the Association of Financial Advisors, Ryan Hayden and Matt Bishop.
I'll make him stick his head in and say hi. Okay. Well, yeah, what we want to do is present you some of the basic pieces that help get you set up because, all of us, we know life is terminal, and so we want to have things in order. We also know that we have loved ones that are in many cases older than us, and we want to make sure things are as amenable as possible when life gets difficult as things get towards the end. And there are a number of things that can be done to make things a whole lot simpler. Recently had an estate planning attorney teach a group, and I asked him, I said, what percentage of the time when there's money and death involved do people get stupid? And he said 105% of the time. So some of the things we'll teach you this evening will help avoid some of the places where people do get crosswise with each other, and hopefully that makes things better for families. So that's really the goal of setting this up. So when we talk about estate planning, what we're talking about is it's a roadmap. It's a roadmap you create for you and your loved ones to get you from point A to point B as you're trying to bring things together as someone is nearing the end of life. So that's really the point. And it encompasses health, it encompasses wealth, and it encompasses interaction. And so that's what we're looking for, is ways to handle things when there's an incapacity or a death. So we start with what kind of people need it. So for a long time, people would say, well, I'm not wealthy, so I don't really need an estate plan. That's really not the case these days. 50 years ago, that was probably fair because court systems were cleaner and faster. The processes were not very convoluted. Everything was simpler. Now, it really is not something that we say, well, you need to have $500,000 or $5 million. It really is pretty much if you have kids and you have places you want things to be left behind, that's really who needs a plan. Because without having those things in order, it truly gets very hectic. We see it all the time. As financial advisors, we see it as friends and family, we see it. So really, when you really need it, and obviously, we see the 13.6 million. I know that is not a common number for us to have $13.6 million in life. Yes, if people have that, it's a big deal. But yeah, if you've got kids and kids of any age, particularly if your kids are in their 30s or 40s or 50s and don't know they're around this, that's a prime time. Or if you're parents, if you're a 30, 40, or 50, this is when we want our parents to have this. The more property we have, the more challenges there are, and especially if you own things in more than one state. And a lot of people don't. That's okay. But if you are a kid or you have kids, really important to have a plan in place because this is when things get difficult. And so what we're going to do, this is kind of right here is a quick run through the typical things we see at this time. We want to walk our way through. This is your table of contents, incapacity, healthcare, property, death situations, wills, probate, tax, and giving, and insurance and trust. So we'll hit all those fairly quickly so we get some headway. 5 Wishes is a directive that you can buy online. I've seen it in Amazon for $9.95. So 5 Wishes is a document process that takes you through these 5 questions. And it really does give direction. You can put it in a will. Wills don't really explain this. This document, the 5 Wishes document, yeah, you can create your own. The document that is produced that you can purchase, you'll see the little asterisk at the bottom. How funny that Kansas is one of the states that won't just take it. If you use this document, if you find one and use it, you still have to have a statutory form, which means you're going to call your local courthouse and say, hey, how do I get a statutory form to make my wishes as life fades? I want to make my wishes known. I want this to be a legal document. They'll say, here's how you do it. But it is a great guide. And a lot of families, if you just fill out something like this, it's their guide and they're going to pay attention to it anyway, whether or not it's a legal document. But these do walk you through who's going to take care of me medically, who's going to take care of me financially? We can assign different people to do that. What are the medical things I do and don't want? When I say how comfortable, we're talking about, what kind of care when I no longer can occupy all of my activities of daily living. So think transfer, transportation, dressing, feeding oneself, toileting, and bathing. When two of those are no longer functional is when we start qualifying for assistance. Where do I want to do that? What's the situation I want to have around me when those are going on? And so the five wishes is a really helpful document. You can certainly do on your own. Spend $10 online, and you have a useful document that can guide your family better. I would say is really meaningful. So when you got to incapacity, we all know that situation. That's not a fun one. Sorry, I went too far on my click. Recognize that these do happen. I was on a trip recently. While we were on a trip, we got a call from somebody, and they had a family member who had a stroke and had been playing golf the day before. These things do happen quickly. So when you have a power of attorney can make decisions for you until you have an incapacity. So that's when sometimes you want a durable power of attorney. Two very different things. Power of attorney says I get to share responsibilities now, but if you don't have capacity, or your loved one doesn't have capacity, and it's not a durable power of attorney, that help goes away. So just when you think power of attorney makes sense, that's actually when it stops being useful. So and recognize, without that power of attorney, without a durable power of attorney, and without directives, your loved ones, they may make decisions. It's not what you want. So again, having a plan in place and having the proper documentation in place gives everyone answers. So in healthcare, this is really self-explanatory, but do understand that a living will is something you put in place for a while. You are, yes, living, and it gives those directions. So the five wishes, that's where the living will kind of structure. That's what that looks like. And you can have a living will done by an attorney. You can set up a five wishes and get your documentation behind it. But again, power of attorney, durable power of attorney, really want to stress that. If you really want to protect yourself and not leave your loved ones or you as a loved one in a difficult situation, durable power of attorney. That way people can continue to make decisions on your behalf. I've worked with a lady who we did great communication as long as her mother was living. We handled assets back and forth, made sure her mother was comfortable. Her mother passed. She has assets that are hers. I haven't heard from her in 9 months. She just hasn't taken care of her own welfare. She took care of mom, doesn't take care of herself so well. Durable power of attorney, make sure you can bridge from one thing to the other. She can make those decisions. Everything's still held in her mom's name. She has the power to do that. She's just not doing it. Do not resuscitate. I think most of us know the whole point of what is extraordinary measures. What do I want and not want taken care of? So that's, you often have one person who's in charge of the health power of attorney. And then in many cases, we want to have somebody who's in charge of the financial power of attorney, who's a different person. A lot of times they will communicate with each other anyway. But if there's two people, if you got two kids and they each have some say, everyone gets along. If you have 5 kids and everything goes through one of them, there's the potential for a lot of disagreement. Well, you shouldn't be making that decision. Well, mom put me in charge, or dad put me in charge. Well, you shouldn't, they didn't know that you'd go do X, Y, Z. If you have these two different people, it really does help the communication process, and it reduces the amount of pressure on one person and the possibility of people being mad at each other. But in property situations, planning for incapacity, one of the things you can do that really helps is hold things in joint ownership, whether it's a property, a bank account, anything that you put in joint ownership means it's going to pass along. A married couple, that's natural. You hold things jointly. And so when one passes, the other one can continue to function. But joint owners have access. And so if one person passes, there's really no changes in handling either a property or an asset if it's held jointly. Again, durable power of attorney being key to making sure things can go on after somebody's incapacitated. A living trust That's a trust that is in place and allows that you're the trustee of your own trust in most cases, but you can put a successor trustee on that trust. So when you pass or you are incapacitated, that successor trustee continues to roll on. So those are tools that can help, again, smooth out the waters at a time when you're pretty stressed by handling everything anyway. It puts everything in a wrapper where you're able to conduct family business without all of the trouble that could happen. Because what happens if you don't have a plan in place, you don't have at least some guidance, everything, the wheels can come off. Yes, bank accounts you have a beneficiary on, you're fine. Investment accounts, you have a beneficiary, you're fine. Houses, cars, we don't often think about this, but you can actually have a transfer on death for property and for vehicles, personal property. And so having those in place, if you don't have those, what happens? We just recently had a lady whose mother passed away. She had an offer on the house. She wanted to sell the house. She can't. She's the only daughter. Doesn't matter. She wasn't on the property. It's going to go through probate, and probate is going to take 6 months to a year. She can't sell the house, even though it's going to be hers. Even though the will says it's hers, the will has to be probated. And so you've got the time lag, and she's got to sit and have an empty house and has to maintain it, has to do all the things to take care of it while she waits for the courts to decide that what's hers is hers. And so you've got lag time. And so then any assets that do not have a beneficiary on them go through the state intestacy laws. And this is what this is going to look like. Most typically, assets get divided, half to spouse, half to kids. In most cases, that's not how we would dispose of things. In most cases, we would give everything to our spouse, and our spouse is going to live and manage those things, and they can pass it to the kids. But if you don't have an estate plan in place, property, vehicles, even piles of money without a beneficiary on them, this is what's going to happen. They're going to get split up this way, half to kids, half to spouse. At least in the state of Kansas, that's how it's going to go. Other states are going to vary some. But what you want doesn't matter. To some degree, what's in the will doesn't matter. If there's not beneficiaries listed, the state come in and say, nope, this is how it's going to get broken up. We're doing it our way, not your way. And so you can see why there would be a number of potential problems in that situation.
So you're saying that if it's payable upon death, if you have this waiver on your car or house payable upon death to a child, for example, then that child won't have to go to probate.
That's correct. And so every county is different. I know where we are, you can write your own. Counties will not provide you a transfer on death, pay on death for property, but they will give you the guidelines. Say, here's the information. You need to have the entire plat listing of your property. You need to have all the names. You need to have birth dates. You need to have identifiers. They will walk you through all the details they need. And then you can write up your document, or you can pay an attorney to write it up. And that document you supply it to the city. And now that is, you have a transfer of pay on death for your property. And yes, that skips probate. So that in place solves a lot. Vehicles are the same way. You have to call your county and say, what information do you need? And they will, you can call the motor vehicle department and they'll tell you, here's what you need. And so you create that document, you turn it into them, same thing. Now you have a proper document that's going to make sure that those things don't spend 6 months to a year waiting for probate to agree. So those are great tools.
We had another question. Sorry for interrupting you.
Okay.
Is there a downside to having a durable power of attorney? Is it easily revocable?
So durable power of attorney, the downside is theoretically the person can make decisions for you when you don't want them to. So you have good communication. They are revocable. It's going to be redoing. You'd have to repost and say, I'm revoking this. And I, here's my document that says, yes, I signed it last year at this time, but here's the new one, revoking it. I've been through one of those too, watched a family get into a disagreement. So dad revoked the power of attorney that was in place, revoked the durable power of attorney. It's all documentation. And in many cases with a durable, you're going to involve an attorney. So now there's money involved. So you have great communication. Durable power of attorney is great because you're going to tell the kids, you don't do anything until I'm incapacitated. And that can be written in there. And then that's fine. That's great. Um, so I would say that is a wise thing. And every attorney is going to have a different charge for that. I can't even give you a ballpark cost because what's true in my town and Kansas City are going to be somewhat different. As a general rule, I would suggest you probably, because there's more competition in Kansas City than in a place like Manhattan or Topeka or Lawrence, costs probably are a little lower to involve attorney for a durable power of attorney. Um, but downside, the possibility of a power struggle if it's not written well. That's it. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
No, not that I see so far.
All right. So, everyone needs a will, and you can do a will. Attorneys, $300, $400, $500 would be fairly common. You can go online and you can probably find one for free. That's going to be very generic. You can probably go to like LegalZoom or somebody like that, do the free trial and download one and then cancel the free trial. They're not going to have lots of detail. They're going to be very, very generic. They're not going to be customizable to you. You can try to put stuff in, but the more you alter those, the fuzzier they get. So when they go to probate, they can get ugly. But I'll tell you, I did one years ago that way. Now I've got a one that's done by a professional. There's no harm in just setting something up. And you can actually do what's called a holistic will, meaning you've written it in your own handwriting. You can write your own will, get a couple witnesses to sign it, and in theory, that stands. It's just that most of us are not great in our legalese, and so we don't always say things the way the court would like them to be said. But will is very important, whatever way you go about doing it, really important. And it says, here's what I want. And it's something you sign, you have witnessed and stands. And it also is something can establish what's called a non-probate transfer. So your bank account where you have a beneficiary, get your beneficiaries on this, your investment accounts. Everything should have a beneficiary that's a financial institution. You want beneficiaries on those. Those will trump a will. You can say in your will, everything goes to child A, but if you put 3 beneficiaries on your financial documents, it's going to those 3. Will doesn't matter. So understand your financials take priority. When you put a beneficiary on there, that's the end of the story. As soon as those beneficiaries have your death certificate, they get to take that on and it's going to become theirs quickly. So that creates a non-probate transfer. You can do that with other things. The family jewelry. At a jewelry shop person I had them give a lesson recently. They brought a shoebox. Family brought a shoebox of family jewelry in, and they said, we want to know what they're worth. And that costs money because they're going to charge to figure all that out. And there was one ring. They pulled out a ring. And the jewelry store owner said, hey, everyone guess what this is worth. They passed it around the room, and people guessed everywhere from $1,000 to $14,000. It was a $13,500 ring. And can you pass that through a non-probate transfer rather than having to go to court? The answer is yes. In your will, you can be very specific. And if you are very specific in your will, it affects a non-probate transfer. The ring with this printed on the inside and this serial number under the certain diamond, it has 4 settings around it. It's made, and you give all the details very carefully, and that creates a non-probate transfer rather than having it go into the system and it gets accepted or rejected and the court does this, that, or the other with it. Just know you have to be super detailed, and that can create just as good a non-probate transfer, but you got to be really careful and really wise. You don't want to do it on everything because it's a lot of work. So if you have a will, you will go to probate. If you don't have a will, everything's going to get argued and go to probate anyway. So just know if the will is there, that's what happens. It goes to the court and it's going to go through the system. What it does do is protects family members from having to carry undue burdens. If there are debts, it goes to probate. Probate's going to deal with the debt process. And so you as heirs don't inherit somebody else's problems. The estate should start handling those things. You're going to have an executor who oversees all that. They're going to clear the house out. They're going to give the gifts away that people want to have given. As long as they're done evenly, you keep track of those things. Being an executor is a lot of work. You just keep your records really carefully. And yes, 6 to 12 months is typical to go through the probate process. It's time consuming and just is what it is. So pros and cons with the process. Obviously, we all like for things to be quick. Probate's not quick, but it's quicker than everyone suing each other and spending years in court. The costs to go through probate are fairly small, but if you've got non-probate transfers and beneficiaries in place, means that's much quicker and no cost to those. And yeah, protection against creditors to some degree. Yep, it does take time, and there are costs, and people can contest the will and say, well, that was, I've got something here that says the intent was different 3 years ago than today, and yeah, it can get ugly. So pluses are it's fairly cheap. It's cheaper than hiring your own private attorney. The con is you may have to hire your own private attorney if there are people who contest. So, and oh yes, everything that gets decided in probate does get released to the public. Public can see whatever the ruling was. It's a public record. So big estate, small estate, doesn't matter. Debts, successes, all that stuff goes out and is available to the public. Most people prefer not to do that because it's a family intimate time. But so yeah, avoiding probate. These are the methods. I talked about the non-probate transfer being very specific. If you hold things jointly or you do have beneficiaries, it skips through the process. The use of trust. If you have a trust and you place things in the trust, that's the key. You can have a trust. You can pay an attorney, write up a trust. If you do not title things in the trust or list for things, give in the trust says here are all the things that apply, and basically everything that is mine goes in the trust. If it's not titleable, it goes to the trust. The trust does wrap up all of that, and now that avoids probate. So then the trust is going to name somebody who's going to be the trustee who then will dole things out. So yeah, Matt will cover that a little bit more here in a bit. And then lifetime gifts are going to be another way. Matt's going to go into greater detail with that.
Tax basics. Okay, let's pull all of these out. Okay, so tax transfers include federal gift tax, federal estate tax, and the federal generation skipping transfer tax. Lots of taxes. Of course, I get the fun job of talking about taxes because, we all like taxes. So
smile when you say that.
Yay, we all like taxes. Okay, so what is a gift tax? So if you want to give money to a friend, to a family member, and you want to give that away to them for some reason, there's an $18,000 annual gift exclusion. You can give $18,000 away and it doesn't hit your gift tax. They don't pay any taxes on it. You don't pay any taxes on it. So no one pays taxes at that $18,000 or under level. What happens over $18,000? And then you hit your gift tax exclusion. So, or then you hit your gift tax for life. Okay, that's that 13.61 million. That you can give that away over your lifetime and not have to pay any extra taxes. But if you go over 18,000 in a year, you have to file, what's the number, Ryan?
709.
A 709 form with the federal government. You have to file that with your taxes saying, I'm giving this away, but it's going to hit my overall lifetime donation amount. So 13.61 sounds like a lot of money because it is a lot of money. And then the flip side of that is if taxes get sunsetted in 2050 at the end of 2025, this will come back down to 6 million, which is still a lot of money. So most of us are not going to give away that much money. So we can gift money to family, friends, and non-family pretty much as we want and not have to pay taxes. The recipient won't have to pay tax and we won't pay a gift tax. However, if we earn that money and we're giving it away, we still have to pay income tax. Not as fun as we think. So what about an estate tax? Okay, so we've kind of all heard about the estate tax. If your estate is less than 13.61 million, you can give your whole estate to your family, no problem. But that really only accounts for first generation family, your children, your spouse. In fact, you and your spouse, is that the next slide? Yes, you and your spouse can give away, let's see if this comes up. Here we go. Oh, I went too far. Sorry about that. You can give away 27, 220. You can give that much away as a couple. And if one of you predeceases, then your 13.6 and her or his 13.6 gets added together, and that's where you get the 27. You can give all of that away, and it doesn't matter if one spouse has died. You still have that much to give away, okay? So the federal estate tax applies to your estate going to your children, okay? What if you want to give away to people that aren't your children or that are your children's children? That's where we jump into the transfer during life at death, or to the federal generation skipping transfer. So now you can give this amount away to your grandchildren. But what you see here is that instead of being able to do the 27 million, we can only do 13 million. Once again, these numbers are large and crazy, but what I want you to pay attention to is that you can no longer combine. You can't have both people giving that away. If you're giving your estate away, it doesn't combine with your spouse to a grandchild, excuse me. It doesn't combine with your spouse. It's just one person. In effect, it reverts back to the gifting exclusion, okay? So this is more like gifting. You can gift 13.61 to one person. You could do that to a non-family member or to a grandchild, and it's not going to combine up. Technically, the gift tax and all three of these are separate. So you could give 13 million to your children, 13 million to a grandchild, and 13 million to a person, who's not part of your family. Those are all separate, but the gift tax and the generation skipping transfer are going to function in the same way. They don't combine up, and it's just one person. Okay. The one thing that is different with that gift tax is that you can get that $18,000 exclusion. That does join up with you and your spouse. Each of you could give $18,000. So if you're planning on giving away money to somebody and you get a large inheritance, you could generously give some of that inheritance to your children right away at this $18,000 exclusion, or you could just file that 709 and give away more in that year.
Why would somebody give away such a number?
Give away more than 18,000?
Why would somebody give $18,000 per year?
Yeah, if you inherit money from your parents or you won something and you want to give that money to someone else right away, you don't want to wait until you're deceased. That's your chance to give that away and to kind of spread things around. Generally speaking, if you earn that, you're still going to pay the taxes. If you're pulling it out of an IRA, you're going to pay the taxes. But it's a chance for you to give away while you're alive as opposed to waiting till you're dead. Okay. Once again, we're going over these numbers. Here's the thing you need to see. In that 2025, you see that the number goes from 5.5 million in 2017 to 13.6 in 2024, and then it jumps back down to 5 million. If the tax is sunset at the end of 2025, these numbers are going to come back down to 5 million plus inflation. For most of us, that's not going to hit us, but we should know that taxes will change things. Okay, lifetime gifting. This is where you can get, we've already gone over this part. I guess there's that last part. Hold on. If you gift something away, let's say it's property. Let's say you gift away a house and you list that on your gifting, then the cost basis, the amount you paid for the house stays with the house. If the child or family member receives that house after you die, you get what's called a stepped up cost basis. So the cost of the house is what it is at that moment of your death. So gifting something is nice because they can live with it right now, but the tax consequences become heavier versus if they get it when you die, then the tax consequences are low, but they don't get to enjoy it until you're dead. So those are kind of the the big ideas there. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to have people enjoy things with you in the moment, or create something that's better tax-wise moving forward? Just
So
depends
to
on.
make this practical, Matt, I inherit a house that's worth $200,000. My parents paid $100,000 for it. Do I pay taxes on that inheritance?
If you inherit it, no. The value of the house at date of death, that's what you would pay if you sold. That's what your taxes would be set on if you sell it.
So I get it as a $200,000 house. Next year I
And-
sell it for $203,000. What are the taxes I pay?
Yeah, you're going to pay taxes on the 3,000. Actually, if you own it and that's your residence, you won't pay anything. But if it's a secondary house, you'll pay the difference between what you received it at 200,000 and what the cost at that moment, 203,000. So if, however, your parents gift you a $200,000 house, they paid 100,000, they gift it to you, and then you sell it, you're going to owe taxes on what they paid, 100,000, and what it was worth, 200,000. That's the difference between gifting and inheriting.
So what's better, gifting or inheriting?
It comes down to what you're trying to do. Are you trying to have people enjoy something while you're still alive? You have a house, your kid needs to live in it, but they can't afford to buy it from you, and you're relatively young, you want to gift it. But if you're older and you want them to have the house, you might wait until you die. If they're not living in it, they don't need it, then you could give them the income off of it if you're renting it out, and then they could inherit when you die. That's probably better. It just depends on the experience and what's going on in your life at that moment.
So if they inherit the house from us, children, I mean, will they have to pay taxes when they get it?
They won't. So let's say they inherit it and they sell it same day. Clearly not possible, but for this conversation, they wouldn't pay any taxes at that point. Okay.
Okay.
Because
Until
they're
they
going
sell.
to inherit it, and the cost basis will be that date of death.
Mm-hmm.
When you die, that's the date of death, and that would be what the cost basis is. Okay, what it's worth at that moment. If they sell it 2 years from there, they're going to pay the difference between when they inherited it and what the cost is they sold it at. So much better than what you bought it at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not paying the tax on the value of the home. You're only paying the tax on the value of the increase if you've sold it.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. But if they keep the house that they inherited, they don't pay taxes like it was
Correct.
just because they came in possession of money.
Right. They would just pay regular property tax. Correct.
Mhm.
They're not going to pay any other taxes for it. That's right. Okay. Here's the 36,000 we were talking about. You can gift, your spouse can gift, you can do 36,000. And once again, this is probably most practical in the moment where you've inherited something and you want to share in that in the moment. Can I give something to my kids? You can also give money straight to a 529. So a 529 plan is an education plan. Money set aside just for going to college. And you can put $75,000 per spouse into a 529 at one time. So 150,000 gift tax free. You can put that in, you have no taxes, and that will grow tax deferred or tax free as long as it's used on education. And then no gift tax on the amount paid directly to school for an individual's tuition or for medical care. So if you're gifting money to pay for medical care, you're not going to pay gift taxes. If you're gifting money for tuition, you're not going to. If you put money in a 529, you're not going to.
So Matt, it says directly, explain that.
Which part? The tuition or the medical?
So if I am your kid, can you give me the money and I pay it to the school? Does that count as direct?
So directly, you have to write it to the school, write the name, send it to the school. That's directly to the school. Same thing with the medical care. You can't give it to a person and then they pay for it. That's actually gifting it to the person. If you're actually paying something, pay the bill. Okay, trust. Why do we use a trust? The main reason why you use a trust is for control. Ryan went over wills. The main reason why you you would use a trust in this case is for control. You can actually set everything up. You can say who's in charge of the trust. You can say who the successor trust is going to be, and then you can write things out the way you want. You can say, my kids are in their 20s. I don't want them to take all of the money out until they're 45. So at age 28, at age 35, and at age 40 and 45, they can take out little chunks as you go. You can write that kind of stuff into a will, into a trust that you can't do into a will. The will takes up a life of its own, and it's completely in control until it's disbanded. So it can, like it says right there, safeguards for minor children, elderly parents, and other beneficiaries. You can write things in to control how the money moves. Most people don't do that, but it's about being able to be in control and about being able to have things go the way you think would be best. If you have children that you don't trust, not trust in a bad way, but you don't trust the way they're going to spend money. You think, oh, they haven't run out of spend money yet. But you have one that's pretty good at spending money. You can make them the trustee, and then you can write inside the trust, this is how they get money. It's a way to protect your children, but also protect the person who's in charge, because they're just running the trust. And then everybody can complain about mom and dad when they're gone, but the trust is still working, right? So it helps to control a lot of things. It will not go to probate. It will be protected from future creditors. And then you have control over property. My wife's family are farmers, and they have a trust for their land. They don't want the land to be sold right away. So they have all three of their kids as trustees, and they have to agree on selling the land. It's a way for the land to be taken care of into the future. Okay, so it's a legal entity that holds property. By property, we mean anything, cash, cars, houses, all of the things you can hold. And then you have trustees, a grantor, the person who starts it, and then a trustee, the person who runs it, and then the beneficiaries. Okay, so then you have living trust, testamentary trust, revocable, and irrevocable. Real quick, this is easy. A living trust is a trust you set up while you're alive that is revocable, means you can change it at any time, okay? A testamentary trust is a trust that's set up once you die. It isn't set up until you die, and then it's set up, and generally it's irrevocable. Revocable means you can change it. Irrevocable means it can't be changed. A living trust will turn into an irrevocable trust when you die. But a living trust and a testamentary trust, when they become irrevocable, that's actually okay, because it just means it's functioning the way you want. You can actually set up a trust right now to be irrevocable right now while you're still alive, and then you can't change it. It's just going to run the way you want it to run. That trust does not maintain cost basis, the thing we were talking about with property. Something that is revocable right now or doesn't become irrevocable until death, that will maintain cost basis. So if a house is inside of the trust and it's going to your children, the cost basis will be maintained in the sense that the step-up cost basis will be maintained. So your kids will inherit it at the price date of death. If you do a living trust and a testamentary trust, that'll be done. If you start with an irrevocable trust, it protects against other taxes, but it also will not save that stepped up in cost basis. So that's real quick, brutal idea of trusts. And then we have life insurance. It can provide an instant estate. It can provide needed estate liquidity, and it gives money away tax-free. Okay. The good part about life insurance is that when you need it, it will be there, in the sense that I have children that are in high school and college. We have a house that still needs to be paid off. If I die, my wife needs funds to function with all of these things, since my income is going to be lost. So life insurance functions for that. Would provide an instant estate, because it would provide hopefully what I would have provided if I was here. But it's not a great way to plan for retirement. So we don't really want life insurance to step in and be, hey, this is how I'm taking care of everything. We want life insurance to cover needs if it's a problem. We don't want it to cover if We don't want to kind of bet all on death. That generally isn't effective, and it's not the best way to plan. So life insurance is there for catastrophic problems. Same reason why we have car insurance, health insurance, mostly for catastrophic issues. If we get cancer, we need insurance to pick up the pace.
Okay, Matt, Alina has $1 million policy because she's very generous.
Hmm.
She passes away and she has one child, and that child inherits $1 million. Make very clear, what is the tax on that $1 million?
0. You will not pay any taxes on that. Life insurance proceeds do not come with taxes. So that's the nice part about that life insurance proceed. It's going to transfer to your heirs without any taxes. There's no cost basis at all. So you're fine. No cost basis issue at all. So it's nice because it goes straight. If you have 3 beneficiaries, fine. If your spouse is your beneficiary, fine. It doesn't matter who the beneficiary of the life insurance is, it's going to go to you.
What if the library is the beneficiary?
Well, that would be weird, but they could be. No, actually, that's not weird. A lot of people do give gifts, charitable gifts. That's what gifting is all about. And if you do that with your life insurance, then yeah, that comes to the library tax-free. Generally speaking, if you gift to a charitable place, even your IRA, that's going to go to them tax-free. So charitable gifting is a little bit different. And a library would be the same thing with that charitable gifting. So I think conclusion, there we go. So we want to make sure we're taking care of incapacity, making sure that somebody's taking care of us. And then we're just trying to set everything up so that it flows smoothly, right? That's really our goal. How can we make things flow smoothly? We want to either have a will or we want to have a trust, depending on what level, or we just want to name beneficiaries on all of our pieces. We want everything to flow as smoothly as it can. And we want to understand what our gifting is. How can we start giving away money before we pass away if that's something we want to do? And that, I believe, is our conclusion. Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions? Or any questions at all?
The disclosure page. That's the
Oh, this is our best page. Yes.
There we go. Oh, yeah, there you go.
We'll give you a little bit to read because we know people like to read disclosures. But anyway, any questions? Oh, there's a hand.
That's clapping, I
That's
think.
clapping. Okay. Well, thank you.
You did good.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So I want to make sure that I understood it correctly. So as a beneficiary of life insurance doesn't have to pay any taxes when they receive money.
Correct.
And if a parent upon death gives all the money, well, that parent can't give anything. He's dead or she's dead. So a child that inherited money from their parents doesn't have to pay money from the inheritance, correct?
Correct.
As long as the estate's under 13.6.
Yeah. As long as it's under that 13.6 or whatever the exclusion is at the time.
Million.
So,
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Million.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's
What's in your back pocket, Alina? Just that amount.
yeah. So let's define that just a little bit better so it's more practical. Let's say that you're given stocks, right? You're given your parents have built up an Apple stock account and they have 200 shares of Apple or 1,000 shares of Apple and they gift that to you. Whatever the price of that stock is, date of death, let's say it's $10 per share. It's not $100 per share. If you die and it's worth $100 and then they sell it 5 months later and it's worth $105, they're only going to pay the $5, pay on taxes of the $5 per share, right? Not the 100. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. There is a question.
Okay.
I went to an event once where they were telling people to buy an insurance policy on the oldest person in their family as an investment. Well, that's not quite a question, but
yeah. So the reason why we don't recommend doing that is because it's very expensive. Oddly enough, insurance is about spreading risk around. So if you're in your 20s, life insurance is pretty cheap because they don't expect you to die, right? If you're in your 70s, life insurance is expensive because they expect you to die and they can't spread it around among all 70-year-olds because They expect most 70-year-olds to be in the same position. So if you're buying life insurance on that person, you're investing in that, hoping that you'll get paid back larger once they die. Well, life insurance also kind of has that gamble going as well, right? So they're going to charge a high premium. If that person, you buy it on someone who's 65 and they live to 85, you're going to spend a lot of premium for 20 years. Whereas if you just invested that premium for 20 years, you would have made more money. So it's not your best investment. Clearly, if you buy it on them, and you're only going to be able to buy it on someone who's healthy. You're not going to be able to buy it on someone who's sick or about to die, because the life insurance will void that and they just won't sell it to you. So if you buy it on someone who's 65 and they're relatively healthy and they live a long time, you're probably going to lose out. If they get hit by a car, then you win, but then you kind of feel bad for winning. So it's not necessarily your best move.
I would add that life insurance is the best investment a life insurance person can sell you. But somebody who can do more than life insurance, they can help you with assets that will grow and have value, that will get more valuable over time instead of less. So what I'm saying is, a life insurance salesperson, life insurance, that's the best thing they can offer. So they're going to say it's a great investment because it's the best they can offer. But there are many other things that offer better protection over a period of time, depending on somebody's age and the purpose of the investment.
Yeah.
Here is another question. My uncle in Arkansas told me face to face that he had everything set out the way he wanted when he died with his attorney. When he died, I called the attorney and he said there was no will.
Oh,
No will. I do not trust him. He had been in trouble with the law himself. Is there a way for me to find the will or any other important documents?
wow.
I assume if you don't trust the lawyer.
Yeah. You'd have to be able to have access to places like a bank box, or the house, maybe where they would have kept the will. Yeah, that's a struggle. Now, even if it was a will and the lawyer says there's no will, it's going to have to go to probate. And the probate's not going to give it to the lawyer. It's going to give it to family members. That's exactly what probate does. Goes to family members first. So if there's somebody probably messing with it, it probably isn't the lawyer. It's probably the family member who is trying to get more of it. So, yeah, I'm not sure that that's a great answer, but that's
yeah. There's no easy way for an attorney to say, "Oh, I'm going to take some of this."
Yeah,
it would be very difficult. If you're getting really creative, you could say another family member could be trying to bribe that attorney to do that, but that would be very expensive to do because attorneys make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it could be that your uncle told somebody what they wanted done, but didn't write it down, or wrote it down in a holistic will. Yeah. He did entirely on his own, but hasn't put it in anyone's hands.
Yeah,
and that's possible.
The lawyer could be shifting things one way or the other, because going through probate, it's going to go to closest family relatives, and you're going to have to petition in that to say, hey, I was supposed to be in this. So it's going to make it harder for some people, but he can probably try and direct. It's just not going to be, he's not going to be the winner of that.
That's a tough situation. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's not awesome, not fun to deal with. On top of, the loss in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions, anybody? I guess not.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was very informative. Oh, here's a question.
Okay.
No one in the family was after anything. We just wanted to know what my uncle wanted. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say search the house really well, because maybe he wrote something down, and if he did, it would make things a lot easier.
Yeah, and it might not have been in a formal will. He just wrote it down. Yeah.
I appreciate your time and information. That's another.
Thanks, Elena.
Thank you.
Nice to meet the two of you.
Thank you
for your
very
time.
much. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.